So a while back I made a video titled I don't like the Fujifilm X-M5 and a lot of people got mad. To be fair, that video was comparing the X-M5 to the Fuji X70, which is one of my favorite Fujifilm cameras, and what I wish the X-M5 could have been. So in this video I want to review the X-M5 for what it actually is. So the X-M5 uses the same 26 megapixel X-Trans 4 sensor that's in the X100V, the XE4, and the XT32, and it's paired with the newer X Processor 5, which helps with efficiency as well as autofocus. Because it was used in all those other cameras, we already know the image quality is excellent. The raw files are clean, the high ISO performance is great for an APS-C camera, and the resolution is more than enough for most use cases. But if you don't need the newer film simulations, and for me I personally don't because I just use classic Chrome for most of my work, then the image quality is going to be very comparable to any of the older X-Trans 4 models. So what this means is that this camera still delivers, just don't expect it to be a jump in photo quality if you're coming from something like an X100V or an XS10. Autofocus. So autofocus is definitely a step up. It's faster, more confident, and subject tracking is better than the previous generations. That said, I think a lot of people who struggle with Fujifilm's autofocus, specifically people coming from Sony level autofocus, are actually just really using the wrong settings or having too high expectations of Fujifilm. Even the older bodies perform great if you dial in the right configuration. I made a dedicated video on the best Fujifilm autofocus practices. It's linked down in the description as well as up over here. And before we get into what I think is this camera's biggest limitation, I wanted to thank today's video sponsor, Squarespace. I've actually been using Squarespace for over 10 years now. Their templates and easy to use interface make it incredibly simple to create and maintain a professional looking website without any coding experience necessary. My Squarespace website was an essential part of how I built my photography business. It allowed me to showcase my portfolio, share recent work on my blog, as well as receive inquiries from potential clients through my contact form. If you're one of those photographers relying on your Instagram profile as the sole place to share your work and build your photography business, I would really consider making a website on Squarespace. You can visit squarespace.com/Reggie Ballesteros to start a free trial and get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Thanks again to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Okay, so here's where things are going to get a little bit personal. The biggest issue for me is the lack of the viewfinder in combination with the side flip out screen. So for me, this combination is probably the worst configuration for photography. It doesn't stop me from making photos, as you can see from all these examples, but it also doesn't get out of the way. I always feel like I'm kind of fighting the camera in terms of how I prefer to shoot with it. And if you use a tilt screen before, the cool thing about that is you know how much faster and more fluid that can be because everything is just in line. That's because the screen and the lens are in line with each other. So you can basically pretend that the camera is like a waist level viewfinder, which you've seen done on an XE4, an X-Robe 3, an X70, which doesn't have a viewfinder. At least the tilt screen is going to be in line. And honestly, if this camera had a tilt screen, I'd probably love it. I'd probably want to be my favorite Fujifilm camera right now. I can even forgive that silly film simulation now, but that one design decision that they made, pairing a flip screen with no EVF, makes this for stills photography feel very clunky and less immersive of a camera. With that said, if you don't care about this, just completely disregard this particular section of the video. If you're someone who shoots more video, you want a lot of flexibility in framing, maybe you do self-portraiture, this may not be a big deal. This could be an advantage for you. Because of this specific way of using the camera, you're going to have to be, pointing it out, holding it out, kind of like taking a picture with a phone. I find that it pairs best with compact autofocus lenses so that you don't have to rely on manual focus and looking at a screen. The XF18 f2, the 27mm 2.8, or even the 35mm 1.4, they all feel great on this particular body. But once you start adding larger lenses like the XF33mm 1.4, the balance is going to start feeling a bit awkward, and also at the same time it kind of defeats the purpose of the advantage of the camera being so compact. And I've been using this camera a lot with Voigtlander lenses, but I do feel because how the screen is on the side, that's not really an ideal match for manual focus lenses for my experience. Again, it's not unusable, it's just not really enjoyable. The video though. This is where I think the X-M5 really shines, but with one really important caveat. So you get the F-Log2, the open gate recording. It's basically the same video features as the XS20, except you get it for a lot cheaper. And I feel like that's a really incredible value because you get a baby XS20 and the XS20 is basically a baby XH2S. But I do feel it was kind of odd that the X-M5 left out the in-body image stabilization because it was such of a powerhouse video camera. So while it does seem like a video-centric compact camera on paper, you do lose that extra layer of stability, unfortunately. And for those who say this isn't a vlogging camera, there's literally a vlog part of the dial. So it does seem like it's intended to be a vlogging camera. So if you shoot mostly locked off on a tripod or use a gimbal, or maybe you don't care about the shakes that much, which is what I've been doing, this usually can work. But for someone who is, a handheld vlogger, hybrid shooter, I definitely think that you need to be aware of this particular aspect. But I will say for video work is definitely the best compact option for video on the Fujifilm system and probably the best value B camera out there on the Fujifilm system. So where does this X-M5 fit in with the rest? If you want a compact Fujifilm body with interchangeable lenses, modern autofocus, and latest film simulation, this is probably the most solid recommendation you can have if you want, again, the most compact and the cheapest available on their lineup. But if you're focused on video, this is also going to be one of the best compact hybrid options available right now. Now, if you want to lean more into the video side and you probably will miss having a viewfinder, I think the XS20 is a fantastic step up and you get the same video capabilities plus in-body image stabilization as well as a EVF, but it's not going to be as small, right, as the X-M5. But if compactness isn't your top priority, the XS20 is probably the best all-around hybrid on the Fujifilm lineup right now per cost, because the XH2S is kind of a step up and the X-T5 does have a little bit of lower video capabilities in comparison to the XS20. But if you're more of a still shooter and you don't need the newest film simulations and maybe this is your first time Fujifilm camera or you want a small compact Fujifilm camera, I think the X-T32 is a great choice and you can actually still find these brand new, and it has the tilt screen and EVF and solid performance, and you can find it for a very good price, assuming you could find it in stock at MSRP. Going a little bit off of the Fujifilm side, if you're looking for the most compact everyday camera and you don't care about video and you don't really think you're going to change lenses, I highly recommend the Ricoh GR3 or the GR3X. Could be a better fit. They actually announced a GR4, so the GR3 and the GR3X are going to go a little bit better in price, I would assume. Significantly more pocketable because the lens can collapse in, and they produce equally as beautiful JPEGs, if not, I think more beautiful JPEGs. I'm a little biased, and they're just great fast everyday cameras. They're fixed lens cameras. One is a 28mm equivalent and the other is a 40mm equivalent. So when you compare prices versus, buying a 18mm f2 or the 27mm 2.8 prime to pair with your X-M5, it's probably around the same price, if not a little cheaper. The biggest issue with the X-M5 today is availability. It just came out, earlier last year, and it's you can't find it. So as a Fujifilm creator, I find it hard to make content around a camera that people can't actually find in stock, and this seems to be the case with every single camera that Fujifilm puts out. It's hard to buy. The resale market skyrockets. On paper, the X-M5 is a great value, but only if you can find one and you can find it in stock at an MSRP. And that's not to say that the tariffs are not going to affect that, because that's a different story. So would I recommend the X-M5? Yes, if you can find it at a fair price and you understand what you're getting as far as all the caveats about the viewfinder and the screen and stuff. It's a camera that delivers on the performance and the form factor at a very great price, and with some exceptions to experience. Like, you're not going to have the best experience that you may have if they got the design just right, but you can make great images with it. You can see on all these examples that I'm showing, it's just not going to be a camera that disappears in your hand and be an extension of your eye and your mind as a photographer. I personally feel like you still always feel like you're working a little bit against the camera just because of the way it doesn't have a tilt screen or an EVF. That said, if you're a hybrid shooter, someone looking for a small camera that can do both photo and video well, this is a strong option. Personally, for me, I'm hoping that the rumored XE5 gets it right. I hope they have the tilt screen, hope they have an EVF, a compact body, and I really hope that it doesn't ship with the 40 megapixel sensor, because that means it might have open gate video. But I think they won't do that because they don't want to cannibalize the X-M5 all the way. Probably going to have the 40 megapixel sensor, which isn't as good for video, which kind of makes it a little bit flawed in terms of being a hybrid camera. But for now, I think the X-M5 remains the camera that has the most potential for the price on Fujifilm, as long as you know what the trade-offs that you're willing to live with. So again, I don't necessarily like this camera, but I'm not saying it's a bad camera. So please forgive me for my previous video. If you want to see the film simulation recipes used in all the photo examples that I showed in this video, please be sure to check out this one right here.